Hello everyone, this is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful Rabbit Hole, Lauren Frey, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. I just had a, I just spent all night thinking about how I had a sore throat, but now that it's time to record, it suddenly disappeared. I don't know if it's because of what I've been drinking or anything, but anyway, it's time for another Rekieta retardation, and it has been long overdue. I've been wanting to talk about this guy again for a couple of weeks now, but in part because I don't really see myself as a drama channel, and in part because I felt like there were so many other people covering the same topic. Kiwi farms. Like I felt like I would be like retreading old ground in a lot of ways, and I wasn't sure like where I actually wanted to go with this. So one of the things I decided to like settle on a very specific idea on this video, a brief recap of what's happened over the past couple of months, because I do think it's safe to say that the official decline of Rekieta law has begun. Like I'd say it had plateaued for a good long while from like the end of the Vic case to up until right now, but the decline has like officially begun. Like we have a general idea of what Nick Rekieta's downfall is going to look like, and much like Ethan Ralph, much like Chris Chan, much like various other figures on the internet, it is going to be a complete disaster. Honestly, rather unprecedented. I don't think I've ever seen someone like Nick, like such a universally beloved figure in this sphere, just kind of fall by the wayside so quickly. Like I really thought that like his downfall would be like a slow, gradual thing as his audience slowly realized that like he wasn't going to do anything productive for them and kind of just move on to greener pastures. But no, like Nick just torched what kind of like whatever goodwill or interest he had left. Like if you're not into the Baldo stuff, if you don't want to constantly hear him rag about like his sexual affairs with other women, like with women other than his wife, like, oh, you're a prude. I don't want you around. You're not welcome here. Like this isn't a place for conservatives. I'm an open-minded individual. I'm a libertarian. Like I'm here to have fun. I don't want to talk about legal topics. Maybe if you do that, maybe if you tell your audience that, the audience that you built up by covering legal topics, that maybe they're not going to stick around. And I think that's what we've seen over the past couple of weeks, is that like Rekieta has essentially made it very clear what he thinks of the channel, what he thinks of his audience, and what he wants to do going forward. The mask has fallen off completely at this point. Like the mask has slipped several times over the years. I've talked about this. I've been talking about like how Rekieta just doesn't seem to like be all that good of a lawyer for years now. I'd say like at least since 2020. I'll have to like go back through my history. I think it was like early 2020 when I first started talking about this. But the mask has slipped several times over the years. There have been like indications that this guy isn't what he seems. There's been like some weird situations and some weird individuals that get involved in this guy. But like up until now, everybody was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, oh man, he's going up against Ethan Ralph. Like Ethan Ralph is a joke. So let's side with Rekieta. Oh, he's going up against like Mad Black Atheist. Let's just side with Nick because he's going up against like this Spurg who's like threatening his family's life. Like we have like these SJWs who hate Nick because of his political views. Like we have to side with Nick here. We have to like side with all of these individuals against. We have to side with Nick against all of these individuals who are just insane and deranged. And so for a long time, I think a lot of people got into this mindset that like everyone against Nick Rekieta is just some kind of like deranged individual, someone who's like kind of out of sync with reality and just kind of completely insane, right? Like the typical terminally online leftist, just like Twitter user, right? Someone who's just completely out of touch with how things work, and there's been countless examples over the years, right? And we've seen Nick go up against these guys and like make fun of them and point stuff out and kind of laugh at their like inability to practice the law. And it I think that more than anything else kind of demonstrates just where we are at this point, in that like the show at one point was about like fringe internet lawsuits. It was about Nick Rekieta going over like weird situations involving like creators like Maddox, Dick Masterson, the Tonka Saw thing, and it slowly morphed into like the show being about Nick himself. This has essentially become Nick essentially fell into the classic e-celeb, uh, it, the classic e-celeb issue, right? The downfall of classic e-celebs is that he really does think that like the community is there for him and not for the content. Like he doesn't understand that like people were coming in for the legal discussion and like the critical analysis of the law and like what's happening with these certain incidents, and now he's kind of drifting away from that. He's trying to make the show about himself and like what he's doing, what he had for lunch that week, where he took his wife on like their exhibitionist vacation, reviewing sex toys, like anything under the sun other than talking about the law. And that has been a problem for a long time. I would say it's been a problem since the beginning, actually, because I have noticed that like the streams have always gone on way longer than they need to. They always spend time talking about like things that really don't matter. They always spend time just like rambling about like, oh man, I had a weird I met a weird chick at the bar today. Like, who cares? You're there to talk about a specific instance, and whenever someone would bring this up, that like would mention this, that like, hey, you're wasting time. Like, talk about like the actual thing you're here to talk about. Like, Nick would like shut them up. Like, oh man, don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me how to run my show. If you want to like hear about legal talk, you can wait until I'm done. You can come back later. Like, I am going to tell this story. And like for a long time, like people put up with that. People were willing to like accept that kind of behavior from him, right? People were willing to go along with like the show because like initially it felt like, oh, these are like natural, organic, normal things for someone to be talking about. Like it felt like he was talking about like real issues and real like happenstances in his life and like real things he's noticed and stuff like that. But more and more, it's gotten to the point where he doesn't want to talk about anything else other than that. Like we've gotten to the point where it feels like the channel is focused more on Nick himself, like not legal topics. So what's essentially happened is that like Nick is, especially over the past couple of weeks, made it very, very clear that he no longer wants to do legal content. And that really alienated anyone who was there for the legal content. Like what seems to have happened is that Nick really thought that his audience was big enough, dedicated enough, loyal enough, and financially secure enough to like support him religiously, regardless of whatever he said or did. He didn't have to like talk about the law. He could talk about like anything he wanted, and like the money would come, the donations would come like swooping in, and essentially this he did this so much, like he talked about like anything other than the law, that eventually people started getting uppity and started like asking like very sensitive questions. And of course, like he's getting angry and angrier and more, I think, because of his lack of real professionalism, his lack of ability to treat this like an actual job. He's drinking more and more. He's doing drugs. He's like doing entire streams on like MDMA, which I don't know anything about. I'm so vanilla. I don't know like anything about drugs, but like he's doing this like crazy stream, like completely on like something, and he's just like saying all this like wild stuff that I don't think he really should have admitted like openly. Stuff about like using the baldo on his wife, stuff like how upset he was at his kids for being excited for Christmas, and how he just really wanted to go to California for New Year's, but like, oh man, I gotta take care of these kids. Like really salty behavior. it strikes me more and more, the more I watch this guy, that like he really does come off as if he really resents having any kind of responsibilities at all. Like it really does come off that way. Like this guy has unlimited free time, right? He doesn't like actually practice law. He hasn't for years, since like 2018, I think at the latest. This guy legit has made streaming his career, and more he's finding that it's not fun anymore. Like streaming is starting to feel an awful lot like work in that sense, because he's actually expected to research specific topics. He's expected to like know about the guests that come on. He's expected to like be up to date on certain legal situations. He's supposed to like be looking on the lookout for like any new trials that he could cover. He's supposed to be doing all this stuff, but more and more he's not actually doing it. Like that's the thing, is that like Nick is so detached from what his audience actually wants and what like he should be doing as like a YouTuber and as a father, that he's just completely gone off the rails. He's just completely like decided to focus entirely on his so-called 15 years of fun, right? And that's the thing about this. That's the thing that really gets my goat about this. 15 years of fun. Is he serious? Like, this guy is like 40, okay? Like, I think he's 42 at this point, maybe 41. He's 40, right? 15 years of fun, right? He's going to keep doing these kind of like crazy streams like until he's 56. Like, he's going to keep doing whatever he wants. He thinks he's going to like seriously retain the audience he's built up over the past couple of years by talking about Baldos on stream. Like that shit didn't even fly like this month. Okay? Like there was already a severe backlash to like the initial Baldo thing and like the retaliation to that, like the response to that, and like the controversies that arose from that, and like the breakdowns and just the crazy situations we've seen. Like that didn't even last like its introductory period, right? Like Rekieta was so used to pushing the envelope when it comes to his content, like talking about sexual topics and talking about this kind of thing, that he was completely unprepared for like the very real backlash that he got for talking about sex toys on stream, right? Like to him, like anyone who was like critical of him was like a prude or like just an evil conservative who doesn't want him to have fun. Which the language there makes me think that like there's people in his real life who are like telling him the same exact things, that like he shouldn't be talking about this and he shouldn't be living his life this way. But like Nick really thinks that like this is the way to go forward. He thinks this is what he wants. He thinks he wants to like spend the rest of his life having fun. And by the way, don't believe him when he says that like the 15 years of fun thing, because he's already been doing this for 5 years. Okay, like shouldn't it be like 10 years of fun now, and that he should like focus on doing other things like afterward? No. He's going to completely just keep doing what he's doing forever, for as long as he possibly can. He has become like DSP gaming. He really has. It is the exact same kind of situation. Someone who refuses to work, who refuses to grow, to learn anything, to like do anything meaningful with their lives, with their careers, with the skill set they developed, and like instead just languish online because it's easy. And that's the thing. Like he really does think he's invincible. Like he's let this slip a couple of times, like on stream as well. And I don't see a lot of other people mention this, but he really does think that like the money is going to keep coming in forever. He really does think that like as a streamer he is invulnerable to anything that might happen. He thinks the money is going to come in even if like the economy crashes, even if like a bunch of his people like things start getting hard for other people, he thinks he's going to like be financially stable throughout all of that. He really thinks that like his career as a streamer is like this financially secure thing, especially after like the deals with Locals and Rumble. I think he's kind of insulated himself. He thinks that like because he's in like this sphere that's not as censorship happy as YouTube, he thinks that like his content can't get taken down and there won't be like any real action against like the things he says and does on stream. But I think more and more people like me are beginning to question whether, like, not only we're past the point like whether or not debating whether or not like what he's doing is ethical, because I think it's not, it's clearly not. I do think that there is cause for like someone to come after Rekieta for some reason, for some legal issue. I think that he has made several notable threats against certain groups of people that might get him in trouble. I don't know if that like would in theory get him disbarred, because I don't know how things work in Minnesota. I've done like a little bit of like reading on the subject, but like typically lawyers are disbarred for like misappropriating uh, a client funds, and because Nick doesn't actually practice, he doesn't actually have clients. So I don't know. Like I could see like harassing certain groups of people, like using his status as a lawyer to like send his audience after certain groups of people might be like cause for concern. I don't know exactly how that works. So it's interesting. I think Nick has had so many encounters with like the ethics board already that he really thinks that like he's not going to get in trouble for what he says and does online. But I think very differently. I think there is going to be a situation in which like his mental stability will be brought into question. And I do think the alcoholism and the drugs, particularly the alcoholism, is impairing his judgment, his intelligence, like his ability to conduct himself in like a setting. Because you can clearly see, like, just compare Nick today to what he was like in even 2019, like 2020, even like last year. I think like there's a very clear like notable cognitive decline when it comes to like how he speaks, how he interacts with other people, how he conducts interviews. The Kyle Rittenhouse like interview is a really good example, I would think, of just an example of how Nick is not able to conduct himself in a professional setting. He's been talking about for years about how he wants to have Kyle on and like talk about what he went through and like the trial process and kind of give like his perspective on stuff like that. And I think there were plenty of things that Nick theoretically could have asked Kyle about. But because he was so blasted on like whatever he was on, I think in that case it was just alcohol. Like because he was so messed up, he was not able to like do a professional interview. And as a result of that, this resulted in this like complete mess of this disaster of a stream that really should have been like a big home run for Nick, but really just made everyone involved look just terrible, honestly. And Nick tried immediately coping afterward, like, oh man, Kyle, he's old news. He's been asked these questions over and over again. This wasn't anything new for him. Like he was doing the thing he always does. Like I've noticed this a lot. Anytime something goes wrong with his personal situation, he always deflects the blame onto something else. Like it's never his fault that he doesn't do research, that he doesn't know anything about like current events or what certain groups of people are onto are up to or doing or anything like that. No. It's there's some reason that I can't talk about this or say this thing or cover this topic. There's some I have very good reasons to do certain things. I have very good reasons to behave the way I do. I'm not a drunk, guys. I'm not a drunk, guys. I'm just at home enjoying some drinks. Like it's interesting how again you keep seeing like him try to deflect the blame regarding like the obvious declining of his life onto like other people. I've heard him talk about like his parents. I've heard him talk about like his parents and their unwillingness to talk to him about sex. I've heard him talk about like Kayla's family, about his wife's family. I've heard him talk about like this or that. Like I think he's like tried to disassociate himself from Ty Beard, and stuff like that. Doug Knapple hasn't appeared in a while. There are all these situations. It feels like there are a lot of people in Nick's life who are like telling him very strongly that what you're doing is completely retarded. And Nick, being a self-centered, egotistical retard, hence the title, Rekieta Retardation, being Nick refuses to take any real advice. He refuses to like take any well-meaning advice from anyone around him and instead decides to surround himself with sycophants. And that is exactly what we're seeing now. We are seeing a split in the audience. We are seeing like a group of people, like me, who are, shitting on Nick and telling him that, like, Drexel is ruining your life, your wife is a whore, your life is going down like the toilet, you need to, like, really get your life on track, you really need to really think about what you value, what's important to you, and, like, really stop the drinking, stop the drugs, stop the degeneracy, because it is straight up ruining your life. It is not making you happy by having these 15 years of fun, right? Like, you have people like that. And then you have, like, the small group of people who are, like, seem to be encouraging this. And this seems to be the people that, like, Nick is allowing in his inner circle, and the ones he's actually, like, interacting with, from what I can see, is like, oh, Nick, you're doing nothing wrong. I'm your e-girl, Nick. We love everything you do. There is, like, a very dedicated group of people who are defending the behavior and defending what's happening here. But I'm curious, like, how long these people are going to stick around. Like, I wonder if, like, how much, like, this is they're going to, like, enable Nick's, like, lifestyle, because I don't think, like, these people are as lucrative as an income source as the actual legal topics. That's actually the real reason why Nick gets so many super chats, by the way, is because legal talk is, like, a very niche topic, and Nick covers, like, this very specific, like, angle of like internet related news. There's a reason he did so well, right? Like, it wasn't because of, like, Baldo reviews, okay? And I think that kind of reflects in his attitude, right? Like, although he would prefer to, like, go on live stream and just talk about whatever, talk about, like, the new sex toys he's got, or, like, hedonism 2, or something like that, he does have to still come on and talk about legal matters. He has to go on, a stream and talk with, like, these law tubers that he clearly doesn't even like, if that recent breakdown is any indication, about, like, what was it, like, jury analysis? Like, he had that, like, big breakdown in regards to that. Like, he's clearly, like, reached the point where, like, he really is frustrated with what he's doing. But unfortunately for him, this is his life now. Like, this is what he's made for himself. He chose to, like, uh, forgo being a lawyer, forgo building, like, a legit legal practice in Minnesota in order to, like, chase this online career. And initially, like a lot of these celebs, it was very successful. But now we're on the downturn. Now we're kind of in this position where Nick has to keep doing these streams that he hates in order to keep the money flowing. And unfortunately for him, there's no way out from this. Like, he can't just go back to the legal practice because he's gotten used to, like, making millions of dollars doing absolutely nothing. Like, he's never going to make as much money, like, being a bad lawyer in a rural county in Minnesota. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, he's going to keep being a YouTuber because at this point, it's the only thing he can really excel at. He doesn't want to grow. He doesn't want to learn. He especially doesn't want to work. That is something I wanted to bring up too. I completely forgot that he's a trust fund kid. Like, he has that kind of behavior and the attitude. Like, he spent his entire life being pampered and being allowed to do whatever he wants. And now that he's an adult, he kind of has to deal with the fact that he's supposed to, like, be responsible, to be, like, the one in charge, and to be the one who's, like, kind of paving the way for, like, his kids, right? And it seems like he's not actually doing that. It seems like he just wants to be that spoiled trust fund kid forever. He wants to just keep doing whatever he wants. He wants to keep, like, monogamously having sex with other people. Like, he wants to, like, people other than his wife. He wants to, like, keep doing the things he's been doing. And while he waits for his parents to die so he can inherit their estate. Like, he has that kind of mindset. Like, I've known people like that. People in their 40s who just, like, have nowhere to go because they've spent their entire lives partying, but, like, no, their parents are rich. So, just gotta wait until they die. That is legit. I think, like, what he's waiting for is that, like, he's too old to be a trust fund kid, but he's not. His parents aren't old enough to die, so he can inherit their stuff. That's kind of what it feels like to me at this point. Is that, like, he's just kind of biding his time until, like, he can just anything other than having to work, I think, is a good way to describe the Rekieta household at this point. Like, this guy will do anything as long as it doesn't involve actually going into the office.